Hi everyone, it's Sam with your Proof Daily NFT Countdown. Lots to talk about today. I hope you had a great weekend. Going to start with a quick market overview. Volumes were up a little bit. Last week we were in that 15,000 ETH range. Over the weekend we were closer to 19,000 ETH. The market share shifted to Blur. 47% share at Blur, just 43% at OpenSea, which has been a trend recently. If you look at this the turquoise part of this graph, you can see Blur gaining share. And I think the reason for that is that OpenSea gained a ton of share because sewer passes for a while were only tradable on OpenSea, and that was doing all the volume. With that unwinding, you're seeing a bit more of an even split or shifting into Blur's favor. One thing I talk about is how there are a lot more trades happening on OpenSea. It's just Blur has more ETH volume. And the reason for that is if you look at this chart, you can see the average price per trade on OpenSea is around 0.15, 0.16 ETH, whereas on Blur, it's closer to 0.7 ETH, sometimes as high as 1 ETH. And that's because Blur is really where a lot of the Bored Apes, Doodles, Ozuki volume is happening, the higher value sets. Floor prices broadly flat over the weekend, saw a bump up in Cool Cats, a bit of weakness in CryptoPunks. My mid-cap index was pretty flat as well. Now within art blocks and art collections, you can see here, this is just the past 24 hours, but over the weekend, there was a little bit of action in a few projects. Meridian had 4 trades over the past 24 hours. Pindervan Armin's Braindrop set, an AI collection for various artists. His Braindrop set went from below 2 ETH to 2.8 ETH. We talked about him on Friday with the big 1-of-1 sale. We talked about him on 100 proof as well. And then the harvest really, I think, was the story of the day on Saturday, with the floor rising from 6 to something like 9 ETH. There was a 40 ETH sale, which we will talk about in a little bit. But you can see this chart, the floor price really just shot from 6 to above 10. It's settled around 10 right now. Second story is Open Edition and Deriv craze continues. And I think we really have to focus on Vincent Van Dogh's Open Edition Pepe checks project that he launched over the weekend. Just to give a bit of background on who Vincent Van Dogh is, he's an anonymous collector of really high-end art. If you look at his OpenSea, he's made huge purchases, top ringers, archetypes, autoglyphs. On Super Rare, he basically owns kind of the who's who of one-of-one artists. He's also the founder of AOTM, Art of the Millennium, which has become the platform basically for really high-end art one-of-one sales, both on the primary and secondary market. So that's a bit about him. Back to the project. He launched Pepe Checks, another play on Jack Butcher's VV Checks, Open Edition, 0.0041 ETH. Why is it that price? Because that's $6.90. And you can see here that he minted 237,869. Absolutely crazy numbers, over $1.6 million of primary sales. Now, after the mint completed after the 24 hours, he immediately changed the metadata. He said, don't trust, check. Now, this is a common theme. When Jack Butcher was on our podcast, we asked him about that. I said, why are you always changing the metadata of your NFTs? And he said, part of it is just to teach people that they don't actually own an image. What you really own is a pointer to another image. And VVD did that right away, changed that image. So curious to see how this is going to play out. If it's something that has a lot of steps going forward, or if this was a one-off, who knows? But certainly feels like there's more to it here. Now, if you look at I thought this was kind of a crazy chart. If you look at VVD's project, Pepe Checks, which was modeled after Jack Butcher's checks, you can see that VVD made 1.6 million off the mint, which is more than Jack Butcher has made in the mint plus royalties combined times 3. So always interesting to see how CC0 plays out. Both of these guys set these prices very low, $6.9, $8. They have 2.5% royalties. They haven't done things that would suggest they're going after tons and tons of money. This is just the way the market played out. Interesting to see how that went. There have also been other derivatives of the derivatives, which have been happening. And then the other crazy thing that happened was that Jack Butcher, immediately after the VVD sale was done, he changed his metadata to look exactly like the NFT that VVD published. So the original was cloning the clone, some sort of like that. Who knows? Makes your head spin. But how did the market respond? It basically sent the price of VV checks through the roof as well. So Jack Butcher's project now at about a 2 ETH floor, it got as high as 2.15 ETH. The other projects of Jack Butcher, the Opepin edition, also mooned, went up to 0.25 ETH, something like that. So you can just see this whole theme is kind of where everyone's focused at right now. I think, I think on the one hand, there's a lot of intrigue with Jack Butcher's project because he has the burn mechanism coming up and people are just wondering if that's going to change the market dynamic. I think whenever there's an unknown, whenever there's anticipation, the market always gets excited, and we'll see how that plays out. The other thing I'd always say is attention shifts quickly. You don't get this much volume, this much attention on a project for very long. The fact that we're talking about it for a week already kind of makes it exceptional in the scheme of NFT projects, but just something to think about. Very curious how this plays out. For now, it just keeps going up only. Third story I wanted to talk about is that Memeland swept Bored Apes. Now, this isn't that big of a deal, but Cyrus tweeted this out. I thought it was kind of interesting. The Memeland team bought 8 Bored Ape Yacht Club. You know it's them because if you look at what they all have in common, they all have captain's hats. We know that Memeland just launched the Captain's Project. 2 of them are these trippy Captain's hat, which is actually a pretty high-end trait in the Bored Ape Yacht Club. Now, 9gag CEO, the founder of the project, confirmed, I didn't say he confirmed, but he gave the eye roll or the side eyes for the idea that Captain's is going to raffle these Bored Apes off to Captain's holders. If you look back, one thing I like about Memeland is they're always coming up with interesting ways to keep people intrigued, keep people kind of talking about them, making their stuff go viral. Earlier in 2022, they gave away a 1-year all-you-can-eat free subscription to McDonald's. Kind of just a silly thing, but that captured a lot of attention. They gave away free iPhones. So this is more just kind of in that vein. I think these guys are very good at capturing attention. Thought it was kind of funny. So curious to see what they end up doing with these apes. It's no joke of a purchase, something like $1.5 million spent on them. The Captain's price still pretty flat. Not too big of a deal there, but I don't know. I thought that was kind of interesting. Fourth story, Dookie Dash update. Again, not a huge story, but something that kind of caught my eye. Bored Ape Yacht Club tweeted, and they basically said that your sewer pass on February 8th has to have a score from Dookie Dash that is not 0, or it will basically be rendered worthless. It'll become invalidated, something you can't use. Now, I'm always sensitive to this because I've seen with proof grails that if there are a handful of the passes that just don't get used, and those things have the right to mint a piece, which ends up being worth 2 ETH. So it's always interesting to see where there's just like thousands of dollars on the table and people are not spending them. Again, sewer passes will need to be tied to a non-zero score on February 8th. So remember to play. I looked at how many people have actually played Dookie Dash, and it looks like about 23,342 have played. Okay. And that's out of 25,532 mint passes. So there are 2,000 that right now have no score at all. And the other thing is that those 25,532 are out of 29,000 total available mint passes that can be minted. So right now, if you start with kind of the total Bored Apes plus Mutant Apes, each one can mint a pass, go to the sewer passes, and then go to the people who haven't yet played. You actually have 6,000 passes out there that still need to play that have not been played. Each one of those has about a 2.5 ETH floor right now. So that's about $24 million that has not yet been played. There's still 3 days. Let's see what happens. But if you own an ape that has not claimed your pass, go claim it. If you own a pass and you haven't played, go play on it. And last thing to remember is do not transfer that pass to another wallet, because the wallet and the pass the pass has to be in the same wallet that it was in when the high score was played in order for that to count. So it'll be really curious to see how this plays out, how many people fumble and make errors here, but just something I figured I'd highlight. And then the last thing I want to talk about is a bunch of notable sales. First big sale, check number 2. Again, the number of the check is kind of the one thing that determines the grailness of it. Check number 2 sold for 52 ETH against the 2 ETH floor. Congrats to whoever sold that. Just made a ton of money in a short period, but nice to see that. Second thing, a Cowboy Big Shades Punk sold for 137 ETH. This was a Kevin Rose sale. One thing we've talked about is, we know that Kevin Rose lost a lot of NFTs. And in doing so, he said he wants to get more squiggles. He wants to rebalance his portfolio. So he decided to sell this punk. Now, if you look at, I think this is kind of interesting. This blue line on this chart is the historic floor price for the Cowboy hat. And you can see that, just earlier this week, it was looking at something like 160 ETH. The actual sale price was at 137 ETH. Just kind of a reminder, there are about 140 Cowboy hats with illiquid assets. You should not be valuing them off the floor price. When you need liquidity, there actually is a pretty sharp discount. Here is about 15-20%. Third thing I want to talk about, and this is an area I don't know a ton about. I'm not an expert on Sorare, but there was a 113.9 ETH sale for a Giannis card. This is a unique one of one. Giannis, I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm proud of this. Congratulations to Giannis. I did a little bit of digging into Sorare, and it's basically a fantasy sports league where you get your cards and your cards accumulate points, which gives you the ability to buy more cards over time. So a little bit different from, a lot of NFTs where NFTs are a pure flex. I'm sure there's a lot of flex here, but really it's about the utility and what that gets for you as someone in these fantasy sports leagues. Now, if you look at the cards, these are the available cards for Giannis. You can see there's limited, rare, super rare, but this unique is really a one of one, which explains why it went for 114 ETH. I believe that's the highest sale there's ever been. So, congrats to whoever needs to be congratulated there. And then the last sale I want to talk about was the Harvest. This piece, again, a monochrome, it sold for 40 ETH. Just on Friday, I was highlighting a Harvest that sold for 12 ETH. Okay, the floor almost got to that price. This one for 40, just completely a new tier of pricing. Always interesting to see when that happens with art blocks, but I think this is one collection that people are really saying is going to be kind of in that higher tier of art blocks over time. That's all from me today. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you liked it, please like it. Please subscribe to our channel. The other thing you can do is go to @ProofPodcasts on Twitter. And if you go there and get notifications, we don't tweet about anything there other than podcast release. So if you go there, you'll just get alerts every time we put something out. You can check it out. We'll be back tomorrow and every weekday. Have a great day.